What's up YouTube community, Bernd here, welcome back to the channel. Today I'd like to show you a really amazing and quite difficult 8-finger tapping lick that some people in the past have referred to as impossible. You guys and girls voted for the topic of tapping with more than one finger on the Patreon wishlist for this month, so this is the perfect time to finally talk about this one. So let the shredding begin. As you probably know by now, I'm pretty obsessed with the topic of arpeggios, for example in the context of sweep picking. And right from the beginning of my career I enjoyed exploring and working with that, aside from the classic 3-note per string shred licks like that one. So one day in my early years of playing guitar, a light bulb lit up in my head. When I was practicing those very basic tapping licks that I was working on, I was essentially also playing a very small arpeggio. I think all of us have played around with something similar like that before. For this lick I was playing the notes E, A and C, and that is pretty much the smallest A minor arpeggio you can play, root note, minor third and perfect fifth. So after working on a couple of variations on that one, like for example moving my tapping finger around in the A minor scale, or moving both hands a bit working with different strings, I was beginning to ask myself how I could make all of this a bit more interesting and maybe even a bit more musical, if you will. So here's the apparently controversial idea I came up with back then. What if I'm thinking in one arpeggio shape with my left hand and in a second arpeggio shape with my right hand? When I would study the 8-finger tapping approach that was pretty underground back then, I could assign up to 4 fingers of my left hand to the first arpeggio shape, of course, like I would do it with sweep picking, for example, but I could also add 4 more notes for a second arpeggio shape with my right hand by tapping. So when I brought this idea to my very first guitar teacher at my local music school, he basically told me it's impossible to do that. Why would you ever waste your time on something like that? Just continue working on the stuff that everybody else is working on. But of course I kept working on this playing approach anyways. But as it turns out, it sounds and also looks really cool, and it's a lot of fun to do once you figure out the mechanics of that. So enough with my childhood traumas, here's the lick we are working on today. As always, you can download the tabs, guitar profiles and practice backing tracks for this lick on patreon.com/BERNTH. And by the way, I finally set up an open Facebook group. This one is called BERNTH Guitar Progress Group. Over there you can finally all interact with each other and share your own guitar progress. And I will also post the links for the new lessons as soon as they are online on YouTube. So let's check out this really tricky lick together right now. So with my left hand I'm actually just playing this very common A minor arpeggio shape. E on the 12th fret on the high E string, C on the 8th fret on the high E string, the root A on the 10th fret on the B string, and E once again on the 9th fret on the G string. So essentially just the top of this very common arpeggio shape. And my right hand is essentially tapping a very common C major shape. This shape consists of the notes G on the 15th fret on the high E string, E on the 12th fret, so both shapes share this exact note. Then we have C on the 13th fret on the B string, and G on the 12th fret on the G string, once again as the lowest note. For the tapping I'm also including A right here on the 17th fret on the high E string. I'm also including F on the 13th fret on the high E string, and later on I'm also tapping B right here on the 12th fret on the B string. The pattern that I performed is played in triplets, and I'm interestingly alternating between the tapped notes with my right hand and the hammer-ons or pull-offs with my left hand. You don't have to start with 8-finger tapping right away. In the beginning you can also just work with 1 finger. So this is definitely a challenging coordination exercise in the beginning, so make sure to take it slow. I'm also using a fret wrap, a string dampener right here to keep the strings from ringing. It's really difficult to do that, of course, when you don't have your right hand available to do the muting for you. So once you can speed it up just a bit more, it starts to sound like that. So that already sounds kind of cool, but as you can see, my right hand, my tapping finger has to work really hard, and I won't be able to speed it up beyond a certain limit because the notes that I'm tapping are not exactly next to each other. So the final challenge for this lick is working with all available fingers for tapping. Trying that will feel pretty crazy in the beginning, and it will remind you how it felt like when you started out playing with your left hand. Tapping with your pinky finger and with your ring finger is a real challenge, so make sure to take your time with that and maybe just start out with one finger in the beginning. But the 8-finger tapping approach right here is not just a trick to make it look cooler. Once you get used to this playing style, it actually gets a bit easier because you're not just working with one finger anymore that has to move all across the fretboard like that. So to make this one more interesting, I was working with a couple of variations. First I was tapping A on the 17th fret with my pinky finger, then I was tapping G with my ring finger, and then F with my middle finger before going to E with my index finger. So I essentially assign one tapping note to each finger and I don't have to move my hand around at all. I really hope that you will try this impossible lick. Don't forget to download your files on Patreon to learn it in detail. If you are posting your short version of the lick on Instagram or in my Facebook group, for example, don't forget to tag me. I'd love to check that out. So in the end, there's one final takeaway from the guitar teacher story. First of all, he was obviously right when he told me I should focus on the fundamentals first before I only work on these crazy things. But I also think it's important to encourage your students and to be encouraged yourself to explore that kind of wacky stuff, because in the end you never know when you might actually need it, and of course it's just a lot of fun to work on this stuff. So make sure to subscribe right now to join this guitar community, that way you never miss another video lesson like that again. Leave a like in case you enjoyed that one and a comment in case you have any further questions I can answer for you. I will hopefully see you guys and girls very soon. Thanks a lot for tuning in today and have a lot of fun practicing this crazy lick.